Now that we've covered risks and hazards, movement in difficult terrain, and, man, I knew it when I came in here. Oh! And lines of sights and obstacles, the links to which you can probably find somewhere in the video or the description of the comment section somewhere. Let's talk about tactically significant terrain formations. Basically, this is the meat and potatoes of building a battle map. Today's video is specifically going to be about choke points. Not the part of the video where she chokes on it. Not the part of the video where somebody fucks up a critical moment and oh dear God, no, not like that either. What are you? Okay, so what is a choke point? Anyways, a choke point is any part of the battlefield that forces all of the units to move into a very tight space to get where they're going. Some classic examples are short 5-foot hallways or doors as you enter a dungeon room. In general, you're going to find that battle maps that feature choke points are going to wind up with the melee units earning a lot more MVP stars than their ranged buddies are, just as a general rule of thumb. So how do you design a good choke point? So there are 3 really basic things that go into a solid choke point design. 1, it's got to be a small space, 5 feet, maybe 10 feet, but no more. It's got to be a specific small area. Second off, a choke point isn't really all that effective if you can just go around it and still get where you're going. It needs to be the only point of egress for what you're considering to be building a map around. As a side note, it is possible to build choke points that do have other ways to go, but you do that by making those other ways particularly dangerous and making the choke point a desirable path out of many options.
If you'd like to know more, please check out my video on risks and hazards and how to use them as a dungeon master to make good combats. I swear I'm not going to plug this in every single video I make.
Also, to get the most out of your choke point design, you're going to need to make certain there's an incentive to go through it. Choke points can get pretty dicey, and to convince a player to go in there and try and make the best of it and take control of the segment of the map, you're going to need to give them a reason to do so. They need an objective. They need a reason to care about what's on the other side. Maybe you could use treasure or a quest objective. There's got to be some reason they want to squeeze in! So if that's how a good choke point is designed, how are you supposed to use one for your monsters, and how can you expect your players to learn to take advantage of them? Choke points are tactically significant to melee characters in particular because they restrict the number of enemies that you have to engage toe-to-toe at any one time. For example, here is Dressman, the very poorly named fighter. Dressman has his back to a wall, which isn't a terrible place for a melee unit to be. He's limited the number of people who are fighting him. You can see here there's room for 5 people to pile in on top of it. However, if we had a choke point, like... and here he is inside of the choke point. Notice how he only has to fight one of them at a time? Another thing worth considering is that as long as the fighter stands there, those kobolds can't break down through him. This is fantastic if, say, you've got a healer right behind him, for instance. But it also works in reverse. If you clog the hole with kobolds, the players can't run through it. This is, of course, assuming that your players are going into a choke point. What if they're coming out of one? Another advantage of choke points is that you can guarantee that this is where the foot traffic is going to be, and there's very limited line of sight here. You can place yourself directly on the inside of a choke point up against the wall, out of line of sight, and attack anyone who comes through. This is really devastating when melee units start readying actions, because it guarantees that they get the first swing in. And it's very difficult to get line of sight on them when they're hiding like this. It doesn't even matter if they know that you're there. You can treat the whole combat like a game of whack-a-mole if you're good enough at it. There is one more consideration to be made about choke points. Remember at the start of the video where we talked about how choke points are places on the map where you squeeze a whole lot of dudes into a tiny amount of space? If your first thought was not, boom, shakalaka fireball, then you have clearly not played with a fireball-happy wizard. The bottom line is that area of effect attacks and debuffs and buffs and all that stuff are just better with more units crammed inside of them, and this is the perfect opportunity to take advantage of that. Remember though, this goes both ways. So with all of that taken into consideration, how can we properly use choke points on our battlefield? I feel this is best communicated through an example, so let's give this a whirl. So let's get our list of ingredients together before we cook ourselves up a good combat. Your battlefield contains a choke point, and you've got a lot of enemies that'll make that choke point a significant element of the fight. Next up, you're going to have an incentive on the other side of the choke point that's going to make the players want to go through it and have the battle there. Finally, you're going to want to have an AoE threat ready to go for maybe around 2 or 3 to ramp that tension up and make the whole fight really pop. Alright, so try this on for size. A band of goblins has kidnapped a merchant's noble's son something. Player characters have been hired to rescue him. The catch is, the goblins plan on burning him at the stake, so there's that time crunch problem where they can't really just stop, rest, or wait it out. After a long, hard-fought battle through the dungeon, the players finally walk up on this doozy of a motherfucker. The guy they've got to rescue is in the back, and there's a limited amount of time before he burns to death. The only way into the whole area to rescue him is through this very tight choke point. And, to make matters worse, there's a whole bunch of melee units getting ready to gear up, they've got a gauntlet set up on the other side, and they're starting to plug the thing so that you have to fight your way through it. We've peppered a couple of ranged units in the back to make that gauntlet ever so more painful. And finally, we're gonna add one kobold sorcerer who's got some sort of AoE spell to drop on you as soon as the group gets packed in inside. All in all, this is gonna be a hell of a fight. Can the players rescue the noble before he burns to death? And there you have it. Choke points, how to use them, and the sorts of tactics that you can expect to see players and monsters using around them. I hope this helps somebody out. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, or if you've ever had a really good encounter on top of a choke point, or a really bad encounter on top of a choke point. I'm evilsqueegee, I'll catch you guys later. Adios. If you don't do something fast, the Toothbite tribe will own these sewers. They're barely even kobolds. Stupid savages, always trading with those big dumb demons in the poopy tunnel. So you have developed a plan that will bring the Snout-Nose family to glory. Fresh rats for Din-Din every night. Water from outside the sewers. The respect and admiration of the stupid humans topside. Everything for Snout-Nose. But first, you have to steal the magic hat. Rumor has it that's where Toothbite, the infamously black magical kobold tribe leader of the Toothbite family, gets his magic powers. Demons love his fancy hat. They think it makes him important. Well, you're gonna steal it, and then probably eat it. And then Snout-Nose will finally have a chance to kill Toothbite, and everything will be amazing! You carefully run your little kobold claws along the pile of provisions you've assembled for this very important, very dangerous mission to the poopy tunnels. You have 2 Facebooks, 1 Instagram, and a Twitch. You're leaving the game wisp at home, though. Your tiny reptilian heart could never bear to see so many shinies fall into Toothbite hands. Finally, you ready your sword and shield. You turn to like and subscribe. Your pet rocks, each tied together by a string, and don them around your neck. You plod into the darkness of the sewers ahead, not knowing what lies in wait. And then, suddenly, it strikes you. You don't know which way the poopy tunnels are. What do you do?